we can do better. And I don't say that as a judgment, I say that as a call to action. We have the ability to do better, and I want to be a part of that movement of people who care enough to choose to do better. Because the reality, as we all know, is in the world today, to choose to care about the world around us, to be a positive contribution, it's actually challenging, it's actually difficult. In university setting, it's like you're piled under papers and tests and trying to pay back loans and all these things. There's literally physical challenges that make it hard to care about the world you're a part of and make a positive contribution. And then on top of that, there's societal standards of like, well, what really matters is, do you dress cool, and do you have a cool car, and do you live in the right neighborhood, and you know, all that stuff. That's what we end up focusing on. And the more we focus on that, the less time there is to actually care about things that really matter. I was saying this last night, it's a big issue for me. Like the fact that we have a fashion police pisses me smooth off. I'm like, how did we get to the point where people get paid to critique other people on the way they look? When I was younger, that's called being a frickin' bully. We pay people to be bullies now, and we think that's normal. And then we have bullying happening in our schools, and now we're having all these anti-bully campaigns, and the reality is our whole society is designed to fund that crap. And then we say, oh, but don't do that when you're little. Once you get older, it's cool, I'll pay you. How did we get to that point, right? So I'm using this as an example to say that to care about the world today, to care about something more than what you look like and what kind of car you drive and how much money you have in your bank account, that's a radical act, just starting there. And so I get that, and I'm not trying to downplay it and say, oh, it's easy to do this work. But what I know for myself is it is deeply meaningful. I have a life that has given me so much more than I ever would have imagined if I had just done what society says we're supposed to do. Go to school to get good grades, to get a good job, to make good money, so that you can buy a bunch of stuff, get into debt, and hopefully have some time off, go on vacations with your family, and eventually die. That's kind of the trajectory, y'all. Some of you are like, I don't know about that. It's like, if you look at it, it's kind of the trajectory. So if we want a life of more meaning than that, then we have to commit to a life of meaning. And that, for me, is what it's all about. We get to choose the meaning that most empowers us. I can't tell you what that is for you, but I know it's possible. And I know it only happens when each and every one of us are willing to explore what's uncomfortable and say yes to that, and allow that to call us and cause us to move around the bend to see what's possible for what's next. And with that, I'm going to stop because I feel like I've stirred, hopefully, the pot enough to have your minds and hopefully maybe even some of your hearts engaged, and then just ask you whatever you'd like to ask. I tell people, here's the thing, you can literally ask anything you want. I don't get offended because being offended is a personal choice, and I don't choose to make the choice of being offended. It's an important lesson for me in doing the work that I do. I would have a lot of moments to be offended if I thought that it was what somebody else did to me. I get a lot of stuff that most people say, I'm offended about that. But the reality is someone says something and it creates these energy patterns, and these energy patterns move air that tickle hair in our ears, and then we translate that tickling of hair in our ears into language, and then through our own experiences we then translate that language into meaning, and then we get offended. So what's actually happening is you're going to say or ask something that's going to move some air and tickle some hair in my ears, and I just choose not to translate it as being offended. And then I also tell people, but the only thing is, although I give you the absolute right to ask or say whatever you want, what I reserve for myself is the right to answer however I want. So as long as you're okay with that, you can say or ask whatever you want. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Great. Go. Come on.
I've been really worried about the way the world is going, but after your talk last night, I've been a lot more at peace.
Thank you, I'm glad. Glad that I could support you in that way. Yes?
What caused you to come down from the tree?
What caused me to come down from the tree is after over 2 years of being called a terrorist, Maxim Corporation, the corporation I was protesting, literally called me a terrorist. I was sitting in a tree, and I was called a terrorist. After 2 years of being told we will never negotiate with that terrorist, they negotiated. And we came to an agreement that protected the tree that I was in and the grove that I was in. So I was actually able to come down on the ground because my life was no longer necessary to keep Luna alive. The tree was named Luna because activists used the light of the full moon to bring up the rope and the platform and supplies. Because if you're bringing a bunch of ropes and platform and supplies and you're trespassing during the day, you're probably going to get arrested. So they use the light of the full moon to bring up the rope and the platform and the supplies to start the tree, say the name of the tree, Luna, Spanish for moon, in honor of the full moon. So the tree, Luna, and the grove around it is permanently protected in a conservation easement, which is currently the highest form of land protection we have. It really doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. Protection only means how vigilant and how caring we are at any given time. But a conservation easement basically creates a law that runs with the land. So anyone can come and buy the land, but they actually are required, if they buy the larger area around it, that area that we agreed to, they actually have to abide by the prescriptions of that agreement. And because companies in today's world make more money violating the law than upholding it, because we don't have a good enough punishment for individuals is huge, punishment for corporations, nada. And so part of the agreement actually has what's called a treble clause, so if they were to violate the agreement, however much they would make financially off of violating that agreement, they'd be required to pay 3 times that much to the fund that was established to conserve the grove. So it takes away their economic incentive to break their agreement, and so that's why I was able to come down. Thank you. There was a hand back there somewhere.
Oh yeah, where is this located? Can you still visit the tree?
Where is it located and do I still visit? Excuse me. It's located in Northern California off of Highway 101. If you were looking at a map, you would see San Francisco and Eureka. It's almost halfway in between, but not quite. But those are the 2 closest landmarks on most maps that you could see. It's above a town called Stafford, but Stafford isn't on most maps. And I do go back to visit the tree. Part of what that experience taught me is that nature communicates, and that actually everything in nature has been communicating since the beginning of time, and part of our problem is we've forgotten how to listen. And when I look at the amount of tornadoes that are hitting right now, the amount of earthquakes, the amount of fires, the amount of hurricanes, the way they're moving, bigger and beyond boundaries than we've ever known them to be as a human family, I feel that that is Mother Nature being like, "Ow! I've been talking to my kids and they are not listening. So clearly I'm going to have to talk a little louder because y'all are misbehaving." So, I get that nature communicates, other people don't, so Mother Nature's being like, So I go back up to see the tree in the area, but not so much for me as to tell the area that it's not been forgotten. Because so much energy and attention was around that while I was there, and then I left, and all this attention and energy went away. And I just don't want that area to feel like it's not important. So I just go back to say thank you, and to be with that energy, and then take that back out into my work in the world. Thank you. Yes? Was there any point in time where I had no food? Yes. Excuse me, I'm sorry, my allergies are acting up big time, and I'm drinking hot water trying to get them to calm down, but they're just not calming down, so I apologize for the scratchy throat. I ran out of food a couple of times. The main time was the company, one of the things the company did to try and get me down was they surrounded me with ropes and security guards and floodlights for 10 days to cut off my food and supplies. So I did eventually run out of food. But I have done numerous actions in my life that include fasting, and I've actually gone for 42 days without food. I don't recommend it. It is hardcore. Clearly, I am designed to be hardcore. But that's a little bit like, it's hard on the body. I don't necessarily recommend it. But this was after I came down from Luna. I was trying to help save the largest urban working farm in the country. It was 14 acres in south central Los Angeles, feeding 350 families, and 350 people, excuse me. And the city owned the land, but had given it to the community to farm, and they'd been farming it for 14 years, and then the city sold it out from underneath them. And so I was involved in trying to help bring attention, stop the eviction, and get the person who they sold it to agree to sell it back to the community. And part of what I felt called to do is that I had to give up food, because what happens, this isn't just an issue about a garden, although it was amazing. Like in South Central LA, you'd go 5 blocks and in any direction, you'd get gunshots. You go to the farm, and little kids are running around, and it's totally safe. It was so phenomenal on so many levels.